Absolutely. Well, it's interesting that you use the word exploit because, as you probably realize, exploit is one of those words that can be taken positively
Right.
or negatively.
Hmm.
And in part of our training, we do ask people to avoid negative charged words or words that are ambiguous and could be perceived as negative because, exploitation is big in our
Right.
communication these days. And I think that the very important point you're raising, Richard, is how we feel about words that we're using and how others feel about them. And it's great to begin with first principles or first definitions. I define persuasion as a process that employs multiple modalities to influence a person's actions. And I in a non-coercive manner. Because the
There you go.
minute you have power over someone, it's no longer persuasion, it's manipulation.
Right. Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Danny Bobrow with us today. And Danny, no one knows Danny as well as Danny, sorry. But Danny, let's get the backstory. Let's bring us up to speed
Sure.
so we can tear into our conversation.
I've been called worse than dandy, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, you are dandy.
Oh,
Bring
thank
some
you,
dandy
sir.
blunt.
We'll see. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Rich. I really appreciate it. I'm a Midwest boy like you, and with a similar haircut. And I was born into a family of dentists. I was also born with a vision impairment, which is probably why I didn't pursue a career in clinical dentistry. I don't think you'd want me around you with any pointy instruments or drills. But I did pursue a career in business, and about 37 years ago or so, my brother, who was and continues to be a practicing dentist, suggested that I focus my efforts as a marketing consultant in the dental profession. And I largely did that for the ensuing 35 years or so. My goal was to work in the non-clinical capacity as a marketing consultant whose job was essentially to get butts in chairs, in seats for dentists. We did a pretty good job of that, generated a lot of leads, got the phone to ring. And what we learned once we were able to track the quality of the calls that were being generated, we realized that the way in which the calls were being handled, or unfortunately in more cases mishandled, was a real cause of concern. That the basically the success chain, where you have three components: generating the lead, converting the lead, and then delivering on the promises that your marketing makes, the weakest link in that chain most often was the middle one, converting prospective, in this case patients, into kept solid and kept appointments. So we developed a curriculum called the Art of First Impressions, Telephone Skills Mastery. And then not so long after I developed that, I realized that the need for effective and persuasive communication transcended the telephone. And that's what led me to create the Persuasion Blueprint, which is a curriculum that, as I mentioned, encompasses more than simply first contact on the telephone. It goes into some considerable depth on how to successfully, effectively communicate in a persuasive manner, really with anyone, prospective customers to be sure, but fellow team members, your superior, your subordinates, family members, friends. And this has, and the reason I'm so passionate about it is that it has, I think, vital applicability to all walks of life in this increasingly polarized world in which we live. Governments, nonprofits, individuals, friends in danger of becoming former friends because of political differences, all will benefit from mastering this, and I think it's fair to call technology.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is such a great topic because I was just having a conversation before we jumped on about automation and how far to one side that pendulum has swung, where it's now kind of detrimental because people have lost the ability to communicate. They've lost relationship, right? They don't understand the power of it and the need for it. It's not going away. You can't just replace it with technology, or AI voice or whatever. I mean, these are all tools. I get it. And in the proper usage, they're awesome. But people are overlooking the communication and relationship aspect of a high performing team, of a high performing business. Do you find that too, obviously?
Absolutely. And I think it's a double-edged sword, not a double-edged sword. It's two, yeah, two sharp and deadly edges of different swords. One of them is the uh, the increase in technology, which is causing people to depend on it, and the other, it's actually related, is the loss of communication skills because of that technology. Millennials, Gen Zers are have grown up on the internet and are more comfortable communicating with their phone than they are with human beings. I just talked to well, I'm also a ski instructor, and I got on the subject with the father of one of the students, and he said, "Yeah, on the way here, my daughter is sitting in the back seat and she's texting me." So
Yeah.
it's like the art of the conversation is gone, and in this increasingly polarized world, the need for those skills has never been more acute, nor are they more lacking, to the point where many companies have just thrown in the towel and said, you know what, I'm going to hire an AI assistant who's going to answer my phones for me. And they might get as good as people, and they're probably better than some people now, but I think that's more of a negative commentary on the quality of the individual than it is on the quality of the technology. So, yes, I concur wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think, and I was going to say this, put this out there. So, like, people might be looking at you and I going, well, you guys are just old guys who had phones and you were before voice, actual answer machines and whatever. So you're just not letting go. And I'm like, no, I've seen it and the data is there, that these little things we carry around. Okay. I mean, people are scrolling, looking. I was consulting for a very large company. I had to release some people from employment. Okay. One woman, Danny, like I'm talking to her, right? I'm about to lower it. She's looking at her phone that is a completely black screen. Okay. There's nothing on it. And she won't make eye contact with me. She
Just an
keeps
excuse to avoid eye contact.
right. And then,
Wow.
she still got to let go. But I'm like, you're looking at a black, like this has become the ultimate distraction slash excuse. I call
Well,
them
it's
one,
been,
I call them one-handed workers.
uh-huh. Or, interesting, you could also call them one-armed bandits, not because they're knowingly stealing from the company, although they probably are unknowingly, but the same uh, the same neurotransmitters, the same brain chemicals that are released when somebody is playing a one-armed bandit are what is getting people to click through and what clickbait is all about. The brain is seeking these endorphin fixes, and we are, in a very real and clinical sense, addicted to our phones
Yeah.
because we want to see what's coming next. And the fact that it isn't a payoff every time is part of the appeal. It's part of the game. We never know when we're going to see something that turns us on, but we're always looking.
Yeah, I tell people, I go, listen, on the other side of the screen is 100 neuroscientists who are they're paid to get you to pay attention and never leave. Okay. So
Yes, you're the commodity.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not free.
Nothing's free.
It's not
Exactly.
free. So what I've done, for me, I've removed social media from my phone completely. Right. So literally now it's just for texting and calling, it's pretty much, and my email, so for me that's been a huge help because even I was like scrolling too much looking at stuff, and I don't really get on it on my laptop either, right? I just kind of avoid it. Now people can give me the pluses and minuses for business and everything else, but what I've done is, like, I have a new business I'm launching. We literally I go speak with people. I walk on manufacturing floors. I go and I talk to people. I'm like, and that's what my salespeople do.
What a concept.
I don't even cold email. I'm like, it's a waste of time. I said, because you go create the relationship You begin like you're a real person. Do that, like, and we're a high end. I mean, we're not selling little things, not selling $100 thing, and like it begins to just that begins to really build upon itself, and it skills up my salespeople and me. Right, we understand. We get better and better and better, and the sales cycle shortens.
Mhm.
It's amazing,
Yeah,
like
because you're
people.
connecting with people on a level that A, we're all wired to want to connect in that way, and B, that type of connection is an increasingly short supply in today's world. So you're
Yeah.
special and a breath of fresh air, I'm sure.
Oh, to that point. So this is what I said to someone else. I go, you're going to be so different. It's going to be such a shock. Because listen, when you go to places, the doors are locked. You can't get in. There's no one at the front desk. Okay, there's like they've just it's kind of dehumanized. You got to ring a bell, that doesn't get answered. So I just said, oh, them really big roll up doors. Those are my doors. I
Uh-huh.
go in there and I just walk on the floor. And I've got the glasses. I got the high vis vest on. I got my boots. I'm here. And don't forget the clipboard because that makes it look important. And then I just go and start talking to people, work my way up to the person I have to talk to, and it works. And I get to know them because my goal is going to be back talking to them again when we actually execute what we have to offer. So, but I'm with you. I'm like, I, the hard sell, and I like to get your insight on this, Danny, because the hard sell is getting people to believe that. Like you said, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, even millennials are like, they become so accustomed to literally texting across the table, or from the back seat, as you experience. Did you tell your daughter, are you trying to kill us? We don't text and drive. Did I not teach you? But it's like, it's all that. I do with my kids too. I'm like, I have one son, like, dude, you got to stop with the phone. You got to put this thing down, man. It's bad. Like,
Well, there are congressional hearings going on right now about the addictive nature of social media, especially how it's targeting children. They called it the big tobacco moment,
right.
where social media is being finally recognized, we hope, depending on the outcome, that you are selling an addictive product and it
Yeah.
needs to be managed.
So here's a really cool thing. I don't know if you ever thought of this. I heard this from a guy I respect a lot. His wife, she did this whole thing on raising boys and stuff. And she had a great thing. I don't know if it was actually her thing, but she said, as soon as you give a phone to your child, their childhood is over because of what they can see, what they can, everything, the whole thing. And I'm like, that is the most profound thing because I really held off on my kids till they were teens, as best we could, like 13, 14, and that was too early. If I could go back, I'm like, no, you're not getting them. Where you get the flip phone, but that statement is so true.
Well,
That
if
just
it's if right, if it's not over, it could be irreparably damaged
right.
because, and this is what they're talking about in the hearings, is that they shame these young children. They show them, what the ideal look is, and they're basically their self-image in a critical stage in their development is being attacked. And that the implications for society as a whole. I mean, we're going to have a batch of population raised to not think very much of themselves. And what happens when people don't think much of themselves? They become ripe fodder for demagogues who tell them that it's not your fault, it's their fault. And then we criticize the other, and that's what's going to be increasingly responsible for an even increased level of polarization in our society. So this is really important stuff that I hope they can get at the heart of. It's difficult because in many respects the horses are already out of the barn.
Yeah,
But how they're going to rein them back in, I don't know.
I honestly, when you see people in the workplace on their phones, they literally think it's a right. Like they're.
Right.
I'm waiting
It's
to hear
it's
some kid
liberty.
say it.
Right.
I'm waiting.
Synonymous with liberty, and that's what they're
Right,
being told.
right. I'm waiting for some kid to tell me it's in the Constitution. Okay. So I'm just like, but with my kid, I was talking to one of my sons the other day, and he's I had his girlfriend over, and they were talking about like my stories, right? Like, Dad, you got these stories. I go, well, do you know why? Because I didn't have a phone to look at. I went out and created story. I went out and achieved things, did hard things, do all this stuff. And yeah, it comes with stories. Okay. Because I'm out living life doing all that because I didn't have that. I'm just so glad I didn't have this distraction as a child. I think it's a real negative for them.
Oh,
You
it
know,
absolutely is. And the stories are what, the best salespeople are the ones who tell the best stories.
that's it.
And it goes back to persuasion. We have to be able to relate authentic, honest stories with which that resonate with our counterpart.
Yeah. So,
And that's a skill that they lack because they don't have
yeah,
the experience set.
right. So let's talk about that. Let's get into this is your thing,
Yeah,
right? So let's talk about because people use people can perceive the word persuasion obviously positively or negatively.
that's
I'll
right.
use the word exploit. I want to exploit. I'll say exploit my customer to the fullest level. That's a positive. I want to be able to help them as much as I possibly can. What
Right.
other offerings do I have in that thing? I don't say it like publicly, but that's kind of my thing. Like, how do I exploit my own capabilities to earn money, create streams of income, and reach these people and help these businesses? So a persuasion can be kind of in the same thing. So let's kind of get your viewpoint on this.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting that you use the word exploit because, as you probably realize, exploit is one of those words that can be taken positively
Right.
or negatively.
Mm-hmm.
And in part of our training, we do ask people to avoid negative charged words or words that are ambiguous and could be perceived as negative because, exploitation is big in our
Right.
communication these days. And I think that the very important point you're raising, Richard, is how we feel about words that we're using and how others feel about them. And it's great to begin with first principles or first definitions. I define persuasion as a process that employs multiple modalities to influence a person's actions. And I in a non-coercive manner. Because the
There you go.
minute you have power over someone, it's no longer persuasion, it's manipulation.
Right.
And I further like to distinguish between convincing and persuading, because convincing is influencing somebody's opinions, attitudes, or beliefs, while persuasion is the art and science of influencing their actions. It's a much simpler matter to convince someone that they should lose weight or they should adopt a healthy lifestyle. It's quite another matter to persuade them to actually do that,
Good analogy.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And similarly with selling, people view selling as a negative term, and I remind them that selling is a tool, and like any tool, it is as ethical and effective as the person using it. And people can misuse skill and talents. I like to define selling as communication with a purpose, or even better, empowering individuals and teams to make an informed decision. So we're not trying to sell them something they shouldn't own. If after our discovery process and our communication, where we gain buy-in from the prospective customer, it is in fact the case. We've made a compelling case that resonates with them that this is something they ought to own. Then we've done them and us a service by communicating in, I think, the most honest manner possible. So again, persuasion is anything but manipulation.
Yeah, I think sales too. I forget there's a Norse word for sales. It's like sale or something like that. And it means to serve.
I didn't know that.
It's actually to serve. And when I had to do this myself, I've always sold, right? I've worked for myself. I got to sell my product, service, whatever. And trying to get the service mindset to serve them, why do they actually need this? How can I make their life better by my product or my service, right? How can they not do without it? You have to learn that, but it's really for them. I'm not doing it for my commission. You have to, and it has to become a genuine mindset,
Exactly.
right? So that
Right.
you can hit all the points and have it come off cold as ice,
Right. Well,
even though
that's
it's the
why,
right stuff. Yeah.
because persuasion begins with yourself. We need to persuade ourselves that we are clearly on this earth to serve others. And I used to think that the Bible and the Golden Rule and were all basically platitudes to keep human beings from killing each other. That it was better to give than to receive, and it never rang as really true initially for me, and that may have said something about me. But what I came to realize through practicing it is that it is truly better to give, and that the benefits inure to you as an unavoidable consequence of your commitment to doing the right thing by other people. It's just the
Yeah.
way the world works.
Yeah, it's just part of the design, I think. And you're right. It really challenges because I would build, done for you sales presentations for companies and do all this kind of really take them through a whole process. And I record video and I have transcripts and we do all this stuff and really try to have that. I did the video presentation so they really understood the warmth aspect, right? Really, what are we doing? The legitimacy, right? The authenticity of it, and put it in there and said, this is the part that's going to be the hardest training. You can memorize all the words and you can go from A, B to C, good, better, best. You can do all that, but it's really not just a presentation style, but it's authenticity and belief, like you're saying, that comes across. And it's your own belief that I think really, to me, closes the deal.
Yeah, it does. And we get into the tactics, the actual nuts and bolts of how to get to the point where you're able to actually, instead of just push a presentation at someone, to get them to the same side of the table as you and to become a partner in the development of the solution. That's actually the third of the three C's of the persuasion blueprint that we offer. The three C's, if I may mention them
Mm-hmm.
briefly, are caring, connection, and collaboration. And they're a sequential process, although they can be recursive because you may establish caring with your prospect and then lose it at some point for a number of reasons. You may misspeak, or they may misinterpret, or they may speak with someone else who throws doubt into their mind, and then you need to return to it. But the first thing we do is we talk about establishing caring and recognizing the existence in many cases of what I call the care gap. And the care gap is the difference between intention and perception. I've dealt with many people who are very caring individuals, and the mistake they make is that they assume that their caring is self-evident. And we show them through a number of exercises how, to the extent to which that may or may not be the case, and then how to close that care gap by establishing rapport, well, establishing empathy, conveying rapport, and then, when appropriate, exuding enthusiasm, because these are the three emotional underpinnings of effective communication. And they need to be done in a certain way at a certain time based on the feedback you're receiving from your counterpart. So it's a little bit in the weeds, but that's what we talk about:
No,
caring, connection, and collaboration.
yeah, it reminds me of one of my a real favorite saying of mine that really helped me was people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. Right.
Yep.
Like, cause I was always about myself.
Right.
So it was,
That
enough about
that's
me. Let's talk about me. Yeah.
that's very much what we talk about very early in the training, and also that people may not remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
That's it.
And the premise is that people either make decisions or don't make, or make decisions to proceed or not proceed based on emotion. Excuse me. And then they justify it with logic. And this is a reality, notwithstanding the amazing technological progress we've made. Our brains are still very much the primitive part of our brain is still very much in control. And when early man was on the savannah and being threatened by a saber-toothed tiger or whatever the threat, deliberating as to the best course of action was a prescription for losing the battle of the survival of the fittest.
Becoming
So
lush.
we're trained to act fast, to react and then think about it later. And unfortunately, when somebody is confronted with a threatening situation, it could be the loss of a deal, it could be resistance from a prospect. The brain responds in the same way that they do to a physical threat. The limbic system, which is, if I may briefly, it consists of the amygdala and the hippocampus. And the amygdala is sensitive to it interprets emotion, fear, excitement, trust, suspicion, skepticism, and then the hippocampus records the memory so that it's quickly there for you to evaluate a similar situation. So if you're responding naturally through no fault of your own, we tend to then act in an irrational way because the limbic system will hijack the prefrontal cortex, which is where executive thought and rational decision making take place. So there's a mediating mechanism called the anterior cingulate cortex, which connects these two regions of the brain. And what we want to do is train our brains to play nice with themselves and basically recognize, identify, and then verbalize what you're feeling when you're feeling threatened. Because the very act of verbalizing it brings you back into your prefrontal cortex, and it tends to diffuse or lessen the effect that these emotions have over you. And so if you relate that to a communication with a skeptical or resistant prospect, it's the same thing. Because otherwise you get into this downward spiral of meeting resistance with resistance. And that's a recipe for failure in communication.
Sure. Yeah. It's really interesting that you can, I don't think a lot of people they don't take the time to analyze that or figure out you can train the brain.
Right.
They think that's just
Yeah.
who I am. I love that's
Right.
my favorite saying. It's just who I am. Well, I guess you're doomed. Okay.
Right.
Like you're never going to sell anything. Okay. So
Right.
you're probably never get married. You can't even sell yourself to,
Well,
a spouse.
we're creatures of habit, which is another challenge that because you mentioned, I think earlier in the call that you deal with a lot of successful people, or maybe before the call, we
Mhm.
said there are people that are very good at what they do, but they're not as successful as they otherwise could be. And that goes back to the success chain I mentioned, the fact that we need to have a system in place to generate qualified leads, and then we need a system that delivers on those promises. But in between that is how do we convert those leads into solid sales or kept appointments? And that's the piece that I talk about, the middle section, which is, it's because I've worked with a lot of highly reputable and highly successful individuals and very talented individuals, I should say, whose success is limited not because of their clinical or technological or expertise at whatever craft that they're plying. It's because they lack the means to convey that caring, make that connection, and then collaborate in the solution. They experience often an example of really competent people who are victims of their own success is what I call expert override, where you've been doing the same thing over and over again for 30 years, and you truly are an expert, and you probably do know what's best for the prospect. And so we tend to brush past questions or finish our prospects' statements for them, answer the question before they've articulated it. And part of it says, well, this is to show you how smart I am, how many times I've seen
Right.
this, that I can save you time and I can just tell you what you need. And what you may not realize is that you're missing an opportunity to convey something far more important to your prospect. More important than your competence is your ability to get them, to let them know that you understand them and are viewing them as a unique individual.
Well, it's a trust factor, right? I mean,
It's all about trust.
you're establishing that, and when I think about that like, as the expert, what I find is they tend to make up they when I work with people, there's a lot of assumptions they come into things with, and I'm like, well, like I always tell them, there's no place for assumptions here. You have to start. I mean, they're the customer. I spend a lot of time, Danny, telling people to go. They never look at it from the customer's point of view. They're speaking the industrial language, okay, that a customer has no idea what you're talking about, kind of the inside baseball stuff, right? And they don't know how to present. They're putting. I use a marketing example on their vehicles. They have their name is the biggest thing on the truck, okay, and what they do is this tiny little print, okay, and if I'm like, well, listen, I don't if my toilet's backing up all over the floor, okay, I don't care what your name is. Do you fix toilets? Okay, that's the first thing I want to see because then the next thing I want to see is your phone number so I can get you out to the house. Okay, the name is kind of irrelevant to me. I have one picture I got from a local guy here, which is I'd always see this big white box van or like a Dodge Ram, a big squared van. It was white and he had dark blue lettering and he had three things on the side of it. Okay, that took the whole side of the van. It was Bell Drywall. Okay, like that's it. Like Now, let me ask you, what do you think that guy does?
Drywall.
A complete crap. That's all he does. He won't even do the installation, right? But that big white van, I always loved that. I took pictures of him and I talked to him. I said, I just love it. It's just, and he has his name. He got away with both, right? So
Right.
he
Well,
got to
that's
do that.
that's right. That's recognizing the difference between, yeah, the customer's point of view. And we go into length also about the difference between attributes and benefits as well when we get into actual
Sure.
presentations. That, I view a conversation with a prospective client, patient, or customer as being a sculptor who's chiseling away at a block of marble. And every question you ask, every need you identify, everything that's important that you have managed to get your prospect to articulate themselves rather than you telling them what you think is important represents revealing the ideal profile or this beautiful sculpture that's buried in this block of marble. But it's a process, and going in assuming that every block of marble is the same with the same needs, again, is going to limit your success significantly.
Yeah, so true. And Michelangelo would agree with you, right?
That's probably who I got it from.
He's just
Indirect.
unveiling what's inside there.
Yeah, I
There's a
think he
thing in
said
there.
it.
Yeah, it's awesome. But you're right. The whole features over, benefits over features and things like that, are they're kind of common terminology. But I don't think even that being said, people don't dig into what it is. And it's you probably get this a lot when you take them through that exercise to define features and benefits, they really struggle with the benefits
They really
because
do.
they're stopping really short. They don't get what a real benefit is. So,
Right.
like, kind of share that a little bit because I think people don't know how far to take a benefit. Do
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and we coached them on uh, the attribute benefit translator. It's a formula, which is a real simple one, which is you want to translate your attribute into a benefit through the use of what I call a word bridge or phrase. And an attribute is just an inherent characteristic of your offering. A benefit is the positive result that the prospect or customer will experience if they choose to accept your offering. So, you might say we're open on weekends, whatever you do, or we have free estimates. But let's say we're open on weekends. That's the attribute. And it may seem obvious, but what people need, and this goes back to having a willingness to learn and expand and maybe consider doing things differently than you're currently doing them, is to work to add what I call arrows in your communications quiver. You should build a repertoire, an inventory of words and phrases that you can pull readily because you're not thinking about them for the first time. Take the same mindset that you have to practicing your skill, whatever it is. You've developed that over years and you have a protocol, you have a system that you employ. So why rely on winging your communication? Why not apply the same mindset towards developing a protocol that will enable you to consistently and effectively communicate with people? So say we offer weekend hours. That means that our hours are available for you to visit us when it's convenient for you, not for us. And I'm just making that up as I go along.
Right.
But I work with dental practices, and many of them have adopted an oral systemic practice model, which means they recognize, which is the world is increasingly recognizes the links between oral and overall health. And in our communications, we'll say yes, we like to offer what we call a whole person dentistry or oral systemic model, because not only can you save money by early intervention and prevention, but practicing these protocols might actually extend your life or save your life. And that's something that is a lot more impactful than we do cleanings and extractions.
Right. Yeah, I think like when you're talking about like the weekend stuff and this, it's not, yes, it's for you. Okay. But what I do too on that as part of my exercise is like, well, why? Yeah, it's convenient for you, not for me as a business owner, but why is it convenient for you? What happens in your week? This is the pain portion, right? Bring up the pain they have to deal with during the week. And I can't get here because I got to do this. I got all these other things to do. And then the reveal of we're open on weekends and it changes your whole week. And, you can get this and more time with your kid, whatever that is really taking that extra step to say, like I always do it. there's pain, there's the solution, and then there's the outcome. I don't tell them the solution. I tell them their pain, and I say what it's going to look like after you come see us.
So
Right? As
so you unearth the emotional
exactly.
cost or the emotional
We
benefit.
find their
Right.
pain, dig into it, sit with it a little bit with them, so they understand that you understand,
Right.
and then what your life will look like after you're able to come to me on Saturday at 9 in the morning.
Exactly. And
Okay,
then
or whatever.
you employ listening technique, questioning technique, and
Mhm.
silence to allow the person
Yes.
to absorb what you've shared and then process it. And then you pay attention to their response to learn, well, did I land here? Is this something that resonates with them? And to your point about hours, you might want to say when you say that now, do you work Monday through Friday? Do you have a busy schedule? Because if not, they may not care that you're open on
Right.
weekends.
That's right.
And even if they don't, you're uncovering that's a piece of granite that you chipped away and
Right.
discarded on the shop floor, right? But it's still important to know what's not important to them as well.
That's right. Now let's talk about. I love that you brought up silence. It's a big thing I train and I instill in our commanders. We call commanders. We don't do supervisor where we install command, but silence has a lot of applications and a whole bunch of benefits. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. I'd like people to hear that because nobody thinks about that, Danny. Okay,
Right.
so,
It's what,
so
right. Well, it's like music, part of, and I never thought of this before, but I think it's a good analogy. What makes a musical piece compelling is the lack of notes as much as the notes. It's the interplay and the allowing the listener to absorb and process the information. I just discovered within the past year that the word listen is an anagram of silent. And the
well, there
best
you go.
salespeople, as you know,
Yep,
are the best listeners. That's why God gave us two ears and one mouth.
that's right.
So our coaching talks about, employing this maybe the attributes, the benefits translator, but to make it work or to make any communication that you impart to somebody effective, there has to be a pause. There has to be a time when you take a deep breath and recognize that the person, just because they're silent, especially on the other end of the phone where you can't see them, doesn't mean they went away, doesn't mean that they don't like you. It means it may well mean that they want and deserve the time to process what you shared. Plus, it's better, I've coached people and, who give a beautiful presentation and then they're done and they say, would you like to make an appointment?
Right.
Instead of just shutting up respectfully
Yep.
and waiting and let the person process and say, well, that sounds good. When can I come in for an appointment? It's a lot better when they say it than when you say it.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you give them time, they likely will.
Yeah, it's really magical, and there's another, since we're throwing out some sayings, listening is a silent form of flattery.
Oh, I like
Okay.
that.
So, I mean, a friend of mine taught me that 30 years ago or something, I'm like, wow, and his mother taught him that. So she told him that. I'm like, well, okay, this is going to go down in generations now because I share it. And the old me, not so good at listening. You know what made me a much better listener, Danny?
What?
What we're doing right here, podcasts. After 300 podcasts plus, you can ask my wife, I'm a much better listener. Okay. So it skilled me up because I have to listen because I need to respond.
And there
Right.
needs to be a flow.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Well,
So,
since we're on sayings, let me do you one. I'll see you and raise you one.
right.
I've heard it said that, and I think this is true. If you want to be interesting, be interested.
That's it.
And I saw this. I had a friend who would charter a large fishing boat for his clients every year, and he said there was a guide that people particularly bragged about how much they loved this fishing guide, and he'd ask people, "Well, what's so great about him?" They go, "I don't know, but I just love being with him." So he committed to paying attention to how this guide behaved and interacted with his customers, with the passengers. And whenever anybody would say anything to him practically, his answer was always the same. It was always to say, Really? Which that one word emphasized the way it is shows sincere interest and it allows the person to feel that they have something of value to offer. And it is important to be authentic about it. And like you and I don't know you very well, but from the time we spent together, I can already
Mhm.
tell you're open to learning and you're excited to grow by listening to what others have to say. But it's also, as you just said, listening is the highest form of flattery or silent form of flattery.
Yeah. Yeah, I on that too. The after the really, I give three more words I'd add. Tell me more.
It's great too.
In sales, tell me more. I love it because you're satisfying all those needs for the client. They're talking about what they need. They're talking about themselves. You're doing all the listening, and then they kind of stop and go, okay, well, all right, well, tell me a little bit more. I mean, wow, there's got to be
Right.
more, right?
And what,
And
no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I'll just say it's just drilling down. It's just a way to
Right.
drill down and get to the real desire in there.
Well, what's interesting about Tell Me More is that it's an example of an open-ended probe, and usually open-ended probes are questions.
Yep.
What is it that you'd like to improve about your smile? Or what is it that you don't like about your driveway or your garden or whatever trade we're talking about? What we coach, and again, I think I mentioned that we began our coaching on the telephone, which was first contact with prospective customers. And we teach what's called the closed, open, closed sandwich when it comes to questions. At the beginning of the conversation, first of all, the goal is to gain control of the call. And that's not because we're control freaks.
Right.
It's because, as the experts, the caller or the prospective customer wants us to be in control. They're looking to us to guide them to a solution that is best for them. They're likely going to call and say, how much does XYZ cost? And it's not probably because that's the most important criterion. It's more likely the case that it's the only question that they know how to
That's
articulate.
it.
It's a
That's it.
conversation starter. It's like, do you come here often in a bar? If you're still in the dating scene. So we say the key is to gain control of the call, and the person who's asking the questions controls the call. But what we coach on is how to simultaneously establish rapport, convey empathy, and exude enthusiasm while asking questions. So we have what's called the Taffy introduction, and that's Taffy is TAFI, short for the art of first impressions. And we talk about how you answer the phone, how you ask questions, and I'll go through it with you for a second to illustrate if that's all right.
Sure.
All right. So somebody calls your company, and the first thing I'd like you to do is have a tagline and say thank you for XYZ siding, where we're beautifying the community one house at a time. This is Danny. How may I help you? And then the person says, hi, I'd like to know how much your siding costs. Or I'd like to know if you do free estimates. Or I'd like to know why the world is round or why the sky is blue. In other words, I really don't care what question they ask. The answer should be the same. The answer should be, I can help you with that. My name is Danny. May I ask who I'm speaking with? Now, some people might say, well, you already introduced yourself. Why are you doing it again? The reason, as you probably know, is that people probably didn't hear it the first time.
That's right.
If they did, they might have used the name. Now, if they said, hi, Danny, I'd like to know how much your siding costs, I'm not going to be a robot and say, my name is Danny. May I ask who I'm speaking with? But what I'm doing is I'm giving my name, and I'm asking for the name. So that's reciprocity. That's one of Robert Cialdini's principles of influence. I give something before I request something. But the thing that I did was I'm saying that I can help you with that. And so I've set a positive tone for the rest of the conversation. But I've also asked a question. So I'm in control right now. And then they say, this is Bill. And the next question I would ask in a health setting, which is, hi, Bill, are you in any discomfort presently? Or in a non-clinical setting, I might say, hi, Bill, just wondering, is your call urgent? So what I'm trying to do is continue to control the call while showing people that I care about them. All right. Then the next thing that they say, whatever they say, is I'll say, Bill, who may we thank for referring you to us today? Again, I'm asking a question, but the message I'm imparting is that we're a caring organization who wants to acknowledge whoever referred you to us. And whether you were referred to us or not, I'm also conveying confidence that I'm assuming you must have been referred by one of our happy customers because, well, they're all happy. All right.
So
So now I've exuded and I've conveyed empathy. I've showed them that I care. Now the next thing I would do is I've sort of gained permission to elaborate. So at this point, say, yeah, I just would like to learn more about your siding services. At that point, I would say, yeah, tell me more. Tell me more about what you're looking for. Now I shut up and listen, and they're going to tell me everything I need to know to determine how best to match my offering with their need.
and
And then
you've
at the
never
end, and
and
at
you
the end, then we close with closed questions. And here's a mistake that a lot of people make. They begin the conversation with details. And as a very wise man or woman once said, if we're going to do business together, the details can wait. And if we're not going to do business together, the details don't matter. I mean, you'll call a medical office or dental office, and the first thing they'll say, you might call and say, yeah, I'd like to make an appointment. The first thing you hear is your name, date of birth, insurance company. Yeah, well, those are important details, but I'd say you got it backwards in terms of what you ought to be asking them right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, there it is an art. And I think, like you said, just in the siding thing, you get to these points where the numbers you just didn't all that you just did, never talked about the numbers, which was their first question.
Right.
That's the beauty of it. Because the numbers, and here's what I tell people, Danny, they can't attach value. If you just told someone a number, this is one thing I have this standing rule with all my clients. We never email an estimate. Like if I find out you emailed an estimate, I'm going to find you and it's going to be painful. Okay. Because we don't do that because they can't attach value to that. They go right to the bottom number, see how much, then compare it with the other guy's bottom number. You've never attached value to what you have. So like in your scenario, siding that can range depending on color and size and type and everything else. So like you're never going to get that. Like you said, that details, that's later.
And the fact that I didn't answer the question doesn't mean I'm being dishonest.
That's
And
right.
that's the thing that we have challenged coaching people on is, well, they asked the question, I have to answer it. You're going to answer it, but you don't have to answer it immediately. You told them that you could help them, and you will indeed help them. But first, you need to connect with them on an emotional level so that they know that you care. Otherwise, that rational question they asked is not even going to register because their limbic system is still processing whether they trust you or want to work with
That's
you.
it. That's it. I love it. I love it. It's so, and it really is, it's exactly that. It's like, if you, again, we go back to in the beginning, you want to serve them, telling them your price per square foot as the first question doesn't serve them at all.
That's right.
Okay. They might go, well, he's
Exactly.
cheaper. He goes, buys a garbage product, puts it in his house. It's no good in 5 years where you have a 30-year, you know what I mean? You start looking at this like,
Sure do.
well, I'm not serving them properly. Again, back to service, so
You
you
haven't
right.
you haven't sold them, which means empowering them to make an informed decision. People call all the time asking the price. It doesn't mean that they want the cheapest item. It just means that's something to start the conversation. That's all it is.
That's all it is. And because they don't know. How many times do people put siding on their house?
Right.
Okay. So it's like maybe once in their lifetime. Okay. So it's not something that's like, it's
If
not
they
buying
do it
shoes.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not like buying a pair of shoes.
No.
Okay. You're going to do that a lot, or cars.
By the
even.
way, you like the movie Tin Men?
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
that? It was a
Yeah.
great movie.
Yeah.
And they talked about psychology of selling in there, but it was somewhat manipulative, but
Yeah.
pretty funny nonetheless.
Yeah. But it really is going back to the service aspect and this whole, it's a process. Everything has to be a process. It's like I did another thing too with my business was someone would contact me for an estimate, right? They had a roofing business. So we're going to come out and do the roof. Okay. Well, great. I'd set it up. I had my thing kind of like you had, right? But basically we're getting the details of the time and this and what do you need? All this stuff's really good, but I'd never go there without at least 4 days in between. Now people can go both ways and you go out right away and get the job. I'm like, give me 4 days because they had the phone call. Immediately, they're going to get an email confirmation of the time, date, all that kind of stuff. Then they're going to get another one. They're going to get my license, going to get this. So by the time I've walked and knocked on the door, that 4 days, 5 days later, they've had 7 or 8 touches minimum from me. I'm just going to air quote warm the lead, and then we have a whole process. When we get there, we get out of the truck, the whole thing is all processed out to do this and serve them at the highest level. And we can just, they may never open one of those emails. It doesn't matter. They
They
arrive,
know you're
right?
on
So
it. The ball's in their court. They
that's
know
right.
that you're on it. Exactly. And
That's
that's
right.
the tone that you're setting.
I am very interested in doing. I mean, one time I went to a woman, got on the roof, did my estimate, came down. I closed the deal, right? About 45 minutes. Yeah, that was $17,000 roof. And we're walking out to the car, out to my truck. She's kind of strolling down because the garbage cans are out there by the mailbox. She opens the mailbox, pulls it out. She goes, "Oh, look, it's an estimate from a roofer who came by 2 weeks ago and he mailed it," right? I go, "Well, I guess you don't need that." And she just, "You're right." She threw it right in the trash. Didn't even open it. Okay.
That's
I already have a
gratifying.
check, right? I got the deposit. I signed the deal there because I'm prepared to do that. I'm not going to leave. And this is just a funny part, Danny. I'm like, there's like 7 aspects to doing a roof. You can't do that on site. You got to go home and think about it. And then mail an email. I'm like, no, we do the deal here. Okay. And we present, do the whole thing. So
Well, I love the main takeaway that I'm getting from your what you just shared is how do people actually you didn't ask this question, but a question I'm often asked is how do people succeed at mastering your material, the persuasion blueprint? And when you're dealing, I'm in healthcare quite a bit, but I'm also in other verticals. And the way that I usually get this to resonate with people is to say, well, and I talked about it earlier, you have a protocol. You're very good at what you do. When you prepare to do a new roof, are you reading a manual? Are you thinking about what the next step
right.
is? Are you, just winging it? Of course not. Well, what you need to do is to take that same mindset and apply it toward this skill, because this is just as important to your success as actually implementing your solution. And I work with a lot of people who will look at what I have to say, and that sounds good. Here's the money. Here's my investment. Now work with my assistant. And I can already tell we're going to have trouble
Yep.
because the assistant or whoever it is probably, I'm making assumptions here, but again, I think, and we want to be careful about that, but I have experience in this, that when they do that, they sort of are throwing money at a problem. And the assistant says, well, you know, my boss has just been mesmerized by the latest shiny object that she's seen.
Yep.
And if I just pay lip service and write it out, it's going to go away. And then I can go back to doing things the way I like doing them. Because we're all creatures of habit and people really do resist change. So what I tell people is you need to embrace this, be a participant, master it yourself, and lead by example.
Yep.
And when you do that, the likelihood of success is greatly enhanced.
Yeah, it's so true. Everything starts at the top. Okay.
But
I was in a company last week, same thing. I'm like, it's just under the top. The number 2 guy is the problem. Okay. It doesn't matter. Everything else below that and having issues. I'm like, I've known for a long time where the problem is. It's just getting someone to address it. Right. Like, because that's well, there's a lot of factors involved there, but it really does start at the top. When I look at any business and there's issues, oftentimes, and I can speak for myself as an owner as well, I'm the biggest problem usually in the business. I'm in the way more than I'm, helping. And I make a conscious effort not to be anymore, but it used to always be that case. And I always joke with people too, like, but you can't go in and tell the business owner he's all messed up.
no.
You don't get the gig. Okay. So
Well, that's right.
and
And if I couldn't do that, then I would be not practicing what I preach. So, when we talk about persuasion, it's asking questions. It's, a person saying, yeah, I have a problem here getting organized. And my question would be, tell me more, or what does that look like? Or what are the consequences of that? So we get granular and we get them to articulate maybe for the first time what the real cost is. And it's those sort of aha moments that earn credibility, where the person says, God, you get me better than I get myself.
Yeah.
But you got to go slow because you're right. You can't fire the boss.
That's right. Yeah. But you're right. It's questions. It's tell me more. It's dig a little bit, uncover the pain, sit in the pain, poke the wound a little bit, so they tell you more, and they will share because they haven't, in a lot of times in an owner situation, they're either wearing too many hats. That's often a problem, or they're running so hard. There's no time for introspection. They don't
Correct.
see, I mean, they're you know, they're the conductor of the orchestra, right? They're the one who's in charge. They're running, they're doing all this stuff, and they never take time to look at themselves. What else could be wrong? I've got
Right.
some clients who are amazing at that. And what I've seen over years working with them is just it's unbelievable when they're able to like get that, take that coaching. They're coachable, but the easy way to say it, right?
That's the
And
word.
and they, man, their stuff just goes every week. I tell them what to do. I get on the call the next week, it's done. Every single week. I'm like, and it's just you watch them multiple businesses now and the growth because we have to assume that position. Like you said, first we have to be trained to bring that out of them, the necessity for it, and then the implementation
And
for
when
it.
you accomplish an early win, then that builds momentum. It gives them confidence in themselves and in you.
Yep, that's it. That's why for us, for what we do, Danny, is we start on the floor. I fix the floor. I'm a problem solver. Go in there, we recover profit. Then they're like, "Oh, this guy's pretty good." I go, "Yeah, I'm coming for you. I'm coming. I'm just gonna show you my worth first down here, and then we're gonna kind of work our way back up the chain here. So it's gonna be all good." But yeah, it's but having those skills, okay, and the skill of persuasion, is that how can we just call it that?
Absolutely.
Okay, that is so unbelievably valuable in every aspect of your life. I mean, I have 6 kids. Do you think I had to do some persuading once in a while?
I think so.
Okay, like I was trained in the fire, okay, like every day. So
It's
it
the
was.
crucible.
That's
That's
right.
it. I, I,
That's
I
right.
work with people that are working to communicate with their teenage daughters, with their spouse. This is that's what's wonderful about this. I mentioned it, I think, at the beginning. This has applications in every form of human communication possible.
Yeah, and I think when you can't communicate, okay, or you communicate poorly, okay, there's so many adverse effects, side effects, if you will, of poor communication. And it tends to snowball on itself because you can't get out of what you already said. As soon as it's out of the mouth, you're like, oops,
You're a slave to it. Yeah.
that's right. So I think it's important for people to kind of take a moment and think about that, especially they're thinking of like, well, who's going to help me? And maybe it's you, Danny. They're going to have you help them. Like, but if they know, like, if they listen to this episode, they're going to be way more open, to speaking with you. This is just a point about conversation and tell me more and everything else, right? They kind of know what to expect. It's the blind when they don't know and someone's coming in and say, you need therapy.
Right.
They go,
Well, I was going
I
to
don't
say
need
that when,
therapy.
yeah, when we're talking about how you were connecting with people that, and the ones that were successful, that were open to learning, uh, we also know that there are unknown unknowns, and the people that are watching this may be for the first time or being reinforced what they've already heard or known and forgotten the importance of this. Because the real sad reality is that deals are lost and friendships are broken, not quite often, not because of genuine differences, but because of miscommunications. That if we communicated more effectively, we could have established common ground and realized that we were both working toward the same goal and that we just have a different approach to getting to the same goal. That changes the quality of the communication because then you can have respectful disagreement. You still may not influence the person to adopt your way of thinking or behaving, but at least you've elevated the communication or maintained the communication instead of lost it, which is when communication's broken, then there's no hope.
Yeah, I
And
think
there should always be hope.
that same train of thought is I think today, especially with we talked about it earlier with social media and all this stuff, everyone is and for lack of a better term, they're divided, but they're in only they're not open to hear any differences of opinion. There's no cordial conversation. There's no intellectual debate. There's no
Right.
appreciation for someone who's got insight that maybe you don't have, and you can always pull something, and it doesn't mean you have to agree, and you're not necessarily being specifically persuaded to one side or the other. But if you're not open to listen to it, and I had to train myself to do this too, is like, I need to hear it. Okay, for a couple reasons. For one, if I don't agree with it, if I don't hear it, how do I combat it? How do I have a rebuttal if I don't understand where they're coming from, right? So there has to be that understanding, at least from that position, in order to train me and get asked questions I don't have answers to. That only makes me better, even if it's strength in my own belief
Right.
position.
Well, because you're open to right. And if you it shows confidence in your convictions too. If you're truly confident that what you believe is true and accurate, shouldn't we be open to hearing why other people don't feel that way or view things that way? But the one of the I'm reading a work by a brilliant woman named Toba Hallerstein, and she's written a book called uh, "Don't Bring Facts to a Feelings Fight."
Right.
Because the bandied about phrase now lately is that facts don't care about your feelings, and that's true. But I think it's equally true that feelings don't care about your facts. And the key is to sort of identify who you're communicating or attempting to communicate with. And she's got a gradation of commitments. I forgot even the term she uses, but there's the curious, and then there's the dogmatist. And the dogmatist, you're wasting your time sharing any facts with this person because their identity is tied up with their beliefs. And to change those beliefs would threaten them, just like that saber-toothed tiger we talked about. So the most you can do at that point is to treat them with dignity and respect. So at least they're willing to continue to communicate with you. I was traveling overseas a few months ago and I met somebody, and I won't say what side of the political divide they're on,
Mhm.
but I tried to engage them and they wouldn't even let me ask them questions.
Right.
I know what you're going to say. It doesn't matter. This is the way it is, and I know that this is the way it should be.
This is what I'm talking about. Exactly.
And I realized at that point, and this was hard for me because I have a lot of facts. I
Right.
study this very, very closely and deeply because it's important to me. But I was a little proud of myself because at that point I said, "Well, I apologize," and I changed the subject. And and then I even wrote back to him in an email saying that I respect his views, and he gave me a lot to think about. I didn't say I agreed with him, but I
Right.
said he gave me a lot to think about. So
Yep.
at least the dialogue, the opportunity for dialogue remained open. If someone's curious, then you can kind of ask them where they're at, and you can confirm that we both want nothing but the best for everybody. And let's talk about our differing views on how to get there.
Well, you know, well, it's been a long time now. Back in '09, I was a big talk radio guy. Loved to listen to it 10 hours a day, all this stuff, so listen to all that. And I had a whole lot of opinions, Danny. Okay. And they were all right. Okay. I was right. But I'm listening to that. And a friend of mine one time said, you know what? You should try a 90-day media fast. Just no media at all. I'm going, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. I did that. So that was '09, the beginning of '09. I, I still have not gone back to media.
Huh.
It was the
Well,
most freeing thing ever. I'm like, wow. And I checked in like 6 months after I started that. And like, I don't know, Rush Limbaugh or something was on, so I put it and I go, well, it's exactly the same. It's the same stuff. I go, you know what? And I realized the world doesn't need my opinion. I'm good. They're still going without me. I didn't think it was possible, but I'm good. I'm going to stay over here. I'm going to focus on my next business. I'm doing all this stuff. And I just realized sometimes, like you're saying, I have to be more open to this. And I'm not running to one side or another and tell me more, but like it just changed my whole perspective, not having this constant influx of
well,
singular influence.
right, you're stuck in a silo.
That's
And
it.
that's what people are. They want, and then that's classic confirmation bias. And the media know this, so they serve things up that continue to reinforce what their algorithm is determined is what you want to hear. And that's just so dangerous. I do something that's a little more painful because this is the business I am in, but I won't do a media fast so much as I'll do a media swap. And I'll spend time listening to the other channels to hear
I
what
did
they
that.
have to say.
I did that.
And yeah, and it's not easy, is it?
No, it was miserable. It was miserable. Especially I was so ingrained on one side, but you're
Well, and I try
exactly
to
right.
train the algorithm to not serve me up the same stuff either.
Right,
You know,
right. And that's the thing, right? It that's their job. Their job is to divide and grab your attention
they
and
want
create
eyeballs.
they want animosity, they want anger, they want hate, they want all this stuff because that's what drives people.
That's what
You know,
sells.
yeah. When people
Sad
are
but
happy,
true.
they're if you're really happy, you're probably not looking at your phone.
Well, you'll notice you don't get news that 323 million Americans weren't hurt today. You
So I
know.
give my wife a little bit of guff on this because she always gives me like not every day, but I'm like I got to get the death report. Someone
Mhm.
had a car wreck and died like I don't know, 300 miles away. I'm like, what? What is the purpose of sharing that with me?
Right. If there's no
Like,
bad news in your community, they'll find a community that has
yeah,
bad.
I'm like, I'm just come on now. It's like I get it, like things can happen, but I'm not. I'm pretty optimistic, But it's but I think after this entire conversation, really when we get kind of back to the bare bones of persuasion, what I've learned over years, and you're far more advanced than I am, is that persuasion as a tool, okay, as a tool and a thing that's part of who you are, can change pretty much everything around you. It can change your profession, your basic relationships, your like you said, your family relationships, uh, new people you meet, strangers. That can change the whole interaction of that. So there's so many benefits. I don't know a lot of negatives for increasing your ability, your skill at persuasion, unless you know a couple you throw
That's
out.
a
But
great
um,
question. The negatives,
yeah,
the only thing maybe you're going to become so in demand and popular that you're going to be overwhelmed because that's what will happen. Like you just said,
you
you'll
just
meet
raise your
new people.
prices.
You're
All you
going
do
to,
is
well, that's right. You raise your, you become more selective.
that's great.
And that's true. I mean, if you're
Yep.
open, and that's why, the other thing I have, and I have something called the How Are You test, just to get granular with the art of first impressions, the telephone skills. But people will typically, if you call the average person and they say, "Hi, thanks for calling. This is Danny. How may I help you?" If they say there, if they use the name, and uh, and I say, "Hi, it's Bill. How are you?" 95% of the time, the answer is going to be fine. What can I do for you? If they don't know me. All right. Now, how much more difficult would it be to say, I'm fine, Bill. How are you?
Right.
All right. But the reason people don't do it is that they don't want to be manipulated. They're afraid, well, this person, I don't know this person, so I shouldn't trust them. So you're already setting the tone for a relationship where if they are a telemarketer or they're trying to waste your time, first of all, it blows me away because I get telemarketer calls all the time. And they say, hi, hello, is this Mr. Bobrow? And they mispronounce my name. I go, yeah, this is
Mhm.
Daniel. They go, hi, this is Bill. How are you today, sir? I go, I'm fine, Bill. How are you? Pause. Well, I'm
They don't know what to
fine.
do.
Thank you so much for asking.
Right.
Because they're completely overwhelmed or completely unexpecting that response. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I thought I had shut off the phone.
Well, it's all good.
Um, But,
I'm with,
yeah, I mean, how much does it cost to be nice and to be open? Because that person could be a prospective customer. And in the past, I'd lost prospective customers because I failed the How Are You test.
yeah.
Like who? Yeah.
It's interesting because I always ask how they are. I never. I think it's because my dad always did that. He was personal. I learned it. And it was like that was
But do you
it.
realize how special that makes you,
Isn't it?
Richard?
Isn't it wild? I got to call him and thank him. He's 81 now. I got to check
Hmm.
in. But and I'm
Yes.
also thinking I was coming out of a Home Depot decades ago. They got like the hot dog cart. right
Hmm.
there when you go in the thing. So I'm like, I give a little thing from the lady. I go, okay, thank you. I ask, can I get this, please? Whatever. And she just stopped after I said thing, and she goes, you know, it's really nice to hear that. Thank you. She goes, it doesn't cost anything, to say thank you or to please. She was like astounded at my manners. Like it doesn't get it. I'm like, oh, sometimes, and not like I'm something special, but like,
This was the
and
hot dog lady?
yeah,
Okay, yeah. I wrote a blog like within the last 2 months about vendors, and how there's a tendency to transcend them to their function, to relegate them to a
right.
function. They're human beings. And
Mhm.
I was guilty of this myself, but I have found I get the greatest service now at restaurants and with my contractors because I truly work hard to view them as human beings who have their own challenges and they have lives. They're not just a function for me. And now I get gifts and I have a much better I get better service, but I enjoy my conversations with them too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and your father taught this. My father taught this, but I think I forgot it and had
Yeah.
to relearn it.
It's just, what I do with a lot of, for talk about vendors and things like that, whether it's a hot dog cart or something down place, I always say, well, how's business? They, they don't own it. Okay. But if you ask them that, well, it's been pretty busy. Yeah. And how do you find that? Is that like hard to deal with? Because it seems to do a really awesome job. Like that's a lot of hot dogs you got to dish out there. How many you do in lunch? How many? I do like 175. Dang, that's a lot. There's caring, right? Now
And
I'm actually
empowerment.
interested. I'm actually interested because what if I had to have a hot dog cart?
Right.
What should I
Well,
expect? Okay,
and how good would you be at it at
that's
first?
right. So
Um,
I,
I
I
mean,
I
I
love I love it.
became more respectful for servers when I volunteered in the soup kitchen and as a server,
Yeah,
and realized how bad I was at it.
yeah,
And and
yeah,
and the people in the soup kitchens are no less demanding, by the way.
yeah, for sure. And it's that thing too, like understanding that we used to, you go to a high end restaurant, and you have great service. I mean, it's a legit craft, the good
That's right.
server, right? I mean,
That's
it's
right.
it's and if you haven't experienced, like, save up or whatever, go to a high end restaurant and just enjoy the process. Pay attention to what's going on. It's magnificent. Okay,
Well,
we
you're in Beloit. I don't know if you've been up to the Dells, and I'll give a plug
of of
explicitly. Have you
course,
been to
of
the
course,
Dell Bar?
of no, I haven't been there.
All right, it's a supper club, which is I think unique to Wisconsin, but supper clubs. But this place does such a business. You have to make a reservation for a Wednesday afternoon
I
seating.
love it. I love it.
And I've never had a bad experience there. And
Right.
I love the food, I love the experience, but I'm just amazed at the volume, how they
Yeah.
can maintain me feeling like I'm the only person in the room for, thousands of people over the course of a couple of days or one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. I had some high end friends as I was developing my business, my first business stuff. And we'd go out to places in Chicago and stuff like that. And what else? They'd walk in, places packed, right? They'd walk in, waitress, they're going to see this. Or doing the first thing they do was hand the girl $50. They just started with the tip. It's 50. Let's have a good time. That's what they say. Like, okay. And that would just set the tone. And it was always amazing. There's a big tip at the end, everything else, but it was
It's brilliant. And
the
it shows confidence. It's like,
right,
you don't have to prove anything to me. I know you're just going to be great.
right, exactly. And I just, it's those little things, if we're paying attention, okay, and like that's persuasion. That 50 is persuasion,
Well, and it's the little things, which is a
right?
really important point. Now, 50 isn't a little thing, but the eye contact you make, the knowing nod, these little signals, they go very far in whether it's a hot dog you're buying or a yacht.
Yeah. And one other thing, the server know their name, use their name. Say, hey, Michelle, could you top up this over here? Can we get
Well,
another
you'll
look at
notice in
this?
the Taffy introduction that I use the name Dale Carnegie, who your younger viewers may not know, but he wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, said, person's name is the sweetest sound they'll ever hear.
Yeah,
And I always use it. I don't give them my name because it's not fair to expect them to remember your name because you're the customer and they have
right.
lots of customers. But I use their name and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I told you, when someone's lost in the wilderness, all they do is yell their name because that's the one thing they'll hear. If they were yelling, if I'm Richard and they're yelling Mark, I won't even hear it.
Hmm.
you know, because you get just like you're in that crowded restaurant waiting for you know, your name to be called. I think they just have little buzzers now, but they used to do that, right? And you're like, how am I going to hear my name? And you'll hear 15 other names before yours. They ever give it as soon as you hear it, boom, you're there. You're up
Yep.
to the counter, so it's so recognizable. So a lot of
And I
cool
would
tips.
add too, if you're dealing with somebody who has a difficult to pronounce or spell name, that's actually an opportunity on a silver platter to make a connection with them.
Yeah.
If you just say, I'm sorry, before we continue, would you mind if I confirm the proper spelling and pronunciation of your name? And I will always, I'm a good speller and I'm usually right, but I'll always try to spell the name. And when I'm right, I get big points. When I'm wrong, I still get big points because I
Right.
tried.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's you
Yeah.
can't lose.
Yeah. It's little things. It's little things, Danny. I think and that's kind of what we're getting at here, but so many the small things add up. It's like anything. It's like you can't work out once and get fit, but every day you go and you hit the gym and you're 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and a month later, 3 months later, all of a sudden you lost some weight, you're getting fit because you're consistent. When you take tools like this, persuasion, the names, these little pointers, and you start using them and become habitual, right? Because that's what it is, right? It is once it becomes a habitual method of using, that's when you start to see the results. And that's when your pipeline begins to fill, if you will, right? Because you're able to do those things over and over again.
Absolutely.
Well, Danny, this has been fantastic, as I knew it would be. Right? How could we
Thank you.
not?
So
How
did
could we
I.
not?
Thanks
Yeah,
to
this
you.
is this has been a lot of fun. So let's kind of give us some final thoughts on kind of the big view here of persuasion, everything else, and then we'll share how we can get in touch with you and everything else.
Sure. Well, when I crafted the persuasion blueprint, I did it with myself in mind, a busy guy who likes to get to the point quickly. And so what I've created are 7 modules of no longer than 15, 16 minutes in length each. And it's something that you can work at your own pace. We like to begin the relationship by having you receive your persuasion scorecard, which is a baseline of where you're performing now in terms of caring, connection, and collaboration. And then you embark on the program. I like to ask you to think of me as your persuasion Sherpa. I've been done a fair amount of mountaineering, and the relationship with a Sherpa and their guide is more than just a client server relationship. It's based on trust and flexibility. And so I'm available to work with you on your particular challenges. There are exercises that are at the end of each of the 7 modules. And I'm happy to work with you directly on those to build out and customize your solution. To get a hold of me, you can just go to my website, which is my name, DannyBobrow.com. That's DannyBobrow.com. And we can book a strategy call, or you can complete the scorecard and I can follow up with you, or you can just sign up for the blueprint modules. I do offer a money back guarantee, unconditional. If you do the program and you don't think it was worth the investment, I will give you your money back.
Nice. I love it. See, confidence. That's what it's all about. Proven stuff. That's what that is. So outstanding. Danny, thank you for the time today. This has been just an awesome conversation. We hit some great points, a lot of good stuff for the listeners. And I really appreciate your dedication to your art and your craft.
Thank you.
It
Pleasure
means
was
a lot
mine.
out there. All right. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.